Hello everyone, welcome to today's DevTalk focused on connecting a printer to a web app. My name is Dan Qualiana and really appreciate all of you joining us today. Robin West, one of Zebra's architects, will be going through our presentation. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to introduce a few other things. In another 2 weeks, we will be hosting our next DevTalk, which is focused on updates to the EMDK and the LinkOS SDK. Pretty shortly in the next few days, we will be getting registration links out for that, so you can find those. And then another 2 weeks after that, in October, we'll be hosting a session focused on Cordova and how to work with that for building apps for Zebra's mobile computers and even connecting through with the printers. And then lastly, what I wanted to highlight, if you see on the screen here, this is our developer portal at developer.zebra.com. And I think most of you are all familiar with our developer events page where we do publicize these dev talks. But at the top on the yellow banner, we have a survey there. And what we're looking for is feedback from all of Zebra's developer community around how are the offerings Zebra has. So whether that's our partner program, the trainings that we have, the developer tools, and the other products and features that we have, we're looking to understand how are you using those and how have they been working for you. So we'd really appreciate it if you could give us some feedback through there. As always, we also will have a few survey questions at the end of today's Dev Talk as well, specifically about this talk. So thank you all for joining us, and I will turn this over to Robin.
Hi, thanks, Dan. So today we're going to talk a little bit about doing web printing from doing printing from a web app. And partially what we're talking about today is especially about a new product that we've come out with called Browser Print. There are a number of different solutions for doing web printing. Browser Print is our newest product that we have for developers to enable you guys to do printing from web apps, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what that is and what problems it solves. Here's a quick agenda. So the issue we found, and we've gotten a lot of developer feedback on this, is developers actually want to create web apps that are rich and as full-featured as a standard application on a PC or some sort of a terminal. So they've run into a lot of issues when it comes to that, especially when it comes to USB printing, because most browsers actually block the communications to peripheral devices like printers. There's some ways around it, but the biggest issues that we see are around actually printing from browser to a USB printer. So what they're trying to actually print oftentimes is receipts, labels, that kind of thing from browser. If you just want to print a web page, that's one thing, and there's a lot of ways to do that. But actually printing information based on a form that you've got on your web page or some sort of a receipt, those types of things are a lot harder to do from a website because like I said, most browsers will block that. Especially considering from your side of things, from the web side of things, not really easy for them, for a end user to find and connect to the printers, and USB communication, like I said, is generally blocked. There's also the issue that even if you were using some of the standard tools like drivers, there's no real easy way to get status from the printer. Harder to actually be sure that you're getting the same experience across multiple different printer types, and some of the other solutions out there might not support multiple browsers. Generally speaking, the feedback we've gotten has been that they just want it to be very simple. So that's why we've actually come up with the browser print application. So what browser print is it's two different things. We have a JavaScript library which developers can use to put into their web app and enable the communication out to the printers. And then there's the client app, which your users will have to install onto their PCs in order to get browser print to work. So those two things work in conjunction. If the users don't have the client app installed, they're not going to be able to use your web page to print. And if you don't have the JavaScript library put into your web page, it's probably going to be really difficult for you to figure out how to actually talk to the client app. So that's how they work together. We're also providing a sample code, a user guide, and API documentation to help you figure out how to actually implement this. It's not that difficult, though. Especially once we take a look at the sample code, you'll see it's pretty simple. So how this works is, obviously, you've got a server app that has the JavaScript installed, or has the JavaScript in it, and you've got browser print, which is installed on the client PC, and that communicates with the printer over USB. Once your end users have installed browser print on their PCs, it just runs in the background. They don't really have to think about it. They don't really have to do anything with it. It just sits there, and they can, print from your web page whenever they want. It basically runs at startup and just sits there in the background. And I'll show you a little bit about how that works, but it's there, and they don't have to think about it. So essentially, it's an app that enables printing to the USB-connected printers, solves the core connectivity issues. I'll show you a little bit about how to handle status checking. It's pretty simple. And supports Chrome and Internet Explorer at the moment. And essentially, because of the way this works, your web app can speak to the printers and can communicate to them and print stuff. But somebody else who writes a web app who also wants to use browser print can also do that off the same PC. It enables that multiple different web apps can actually use it. And we do have some source code for examples of how to actually implement this into your web page. The other thing about it is that browser print is essentially a raw printing. So it's an open communication channel that you can send pretty much anything to the printer, and you can read pretty much anything from the printer that you might be requesting from it. So it is very raw, and it's not going to do any formatting for you. So if you actually want to have nicely designed labels, we recommend using some sort of a label design software like our Zebra Designer application, which I can show you a little bit as well. And then once you've actually implemented into your app, then you can end up sending those labels to your printer to print, to your end users' printers to print. So the first version that we're coming out with now has Windows 7 and Windows 10. Chrome and Internet Explorer is USB, and actually this list is not quite right. There's also the ZT400 printer that we are also supporting with this. And this is the first release of this product. So in the future, we may be able to support multiple different operating systems and browsers and connectivity types, as well as more printers than we've got here. We also have a number of developers who have gotten pre-release copies of the software and have validated with us on this particular product as well. So Cerberus and Nimbus Solutions have also both validated on this and have found that it has helped them to solve their core connectivity issues and solve their core issues they have with being able to print to our printers from their websites. So from a standpoint of just being able to figure out where to go to get it, you can go to zebra.com/linkos. If you want more information or get involved with our developer community, we do have a page on the developer portal, just like Dan showed you at the top of the hour. There's a couple of different questions that we know people are going to be asking about this particular product. One of the first questions is, can I be able to get status from the printer? Can I be able to get settings from the printer? Yes, it is bidirectional, which means that if you request status, it will send you back status. If you request a specific setting, it will send you back that setting. You can also obviously print to it. One of the other questions we get sometimes is, can I send a large amount of data? Like if I want to update the firmware using browser print. We're not going to recommend that at this time. It's potentially in the future, but for now we know that this is more designed for regular labeling. Even small images will work just fine with this particular product. If you're doing large pieces of amounts of data, some of the other solutions we've got for web-based printing might be a better option for you. For right now, if you want to do a picture, if you want to print an image using Zebra Browser Print, technically speaking, we're not really supporting that. But if you have the image already converted into a ZPL format using the Zebra Designer application, then you can actually use this application or use Browser Print to send that to the printer as well. But using a PNG or a JPEG image directly, right now that's not supported. Can you print to a non-Zebra printer? No, we're not supporting that at all. And in fact, you're probably going to have a really hard time doing it if you tried. And multiple devices, yeah, we do have the support to be able to handle multiple different printers connected to the PC. This particular slide, I'm not going to read through the entire thing, but basically what this means is we are continuing development on this product. We do hope to support multiple different operating systems and connectivity types. You may find that with the current release product that it appears that we have support for other connectivity types like network or driver-based printing. And while technically speaking those things are in the product, we're not fully supporting them. They are use at your own risk is what I'm going to say right now, at least for this first release. Generally speaking right now, we're gathering feedback to help us determine what features to add to the product in the future. If you find that you want us to support or have a feature that we are not currently supporting, there are a couple of different ways to potentially get a pre-release product. If you are an end-user customer, you can contact your account manager to talk to development services about getting a pre-release copy. If you're an ISV partner, you can go through your standard ISV email to contact us to get a pre-release copy of this. If you are not a partner or an end-user customer, we're going to ask that you become a partner in order to get access to this. That's just our general rule. We don't really give out pre-release product to non-partners or end-user customers. And I'm going to stop here right for just a moment and check with Dan to see if we have any questions.
Yeah, Robin, you somewhat touched on this, but there was a question on why there was a limitation on the supported printer models.
The main reason right now is that this product is something that we are releasing to try and partially gather feedback. So we want to know what models you guys actually want us to support. Partially it's a matter of we tested this with a few specific models in order to gauge, in general what would work, and those are the ones that we're supporting at the moment. But the main reason for that was just we wanted to get this out there and into the field as quickly as possible. We have a number of customers who are currently using it for their specific solutions and on specific printers that we worked with. But we wanted to get this out there and available to you guys as quickly as possible. We do, like I said, hope to have more models available and supported in the future.
Thanks, Robin. There was kind of a follow-up here about, there were some comments about Link-OS, but it also said support for the 28, 24 plus, and I can expand on that a little bit, which was this is not limited to Link-OS. The reason we did test some of the G series and the 28, 24 plus because the use case of Windows and USB is very prevalent in that desktop space, and Zebra does not have a full fleet of Link-OS products yet that has replaced that legacy model. And so that's why you see some non-Link-OS printers that were tested in that space. And let's see, so there's a question, does it support the KR403? The KR403 is a ZPL printer, so while it has not been tested, it should work, but it is not a supported printer at this time.
Yeah, that's partially the crux here. Is that there are some things that should work, and we suggest if you are not in a highly production system, to go ahead and try them. And most of the time, you're going to find that a lot of things will work with this product that we might not fully support at the moment, but they're there, and our suggestion is to go ahead and try it. It is use at your own risk, though, so I have to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, to go in, Robin touched a little bit on the approach we had here, which was to try to quickly develop something, do the limited scope of testing, get it out in the market. We want to prove this out based on what we think is kind of the 80% of what our users are doing. And based on that feedback, we will iteratively look at how to enhance this. And so based on that, that's why we tested the models we did and the operating systems and the browsers that we tested. All right, you want to go ahead, Robin? We do have some other questions, but I think we can come back to those later. You might address some of them.
All right. I'm going to go into a little bit of setup. What I'm going to do here is actually stop the presentation real quick, and I'm going to show you guys where to go to download it, and how to download it, and how to install it. So. What I'm doing here is I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the page for developer tools and hit browser print, and in the download section. Now when you go into here, you'll get a little bit of a form, and the main reason why I've got this form here is to actually gather some of that feedback. We're not going to use it for marketing purposes or anything else. This is primarily just so we can get a little bit of feedback from you later on and find out, how well you're liking the product, if it's meeting your needs, that kind of thing. In order to use it, we're requesting that you actually fill this out and do it. I'm not going to do that now. I've already downloaded it. So now I've got it downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and start the install. It is a standard install product. Once you fill out this form, the install happens. You'll be taken to a end user license agreement. Once you've okayed that, you can the install will start automatically, so you don't have to worry about waiting to get a response from us in order to actually get the product. So I'm just going to install it in the standard location here. And I am going to leave this as launch browser print so you can see what happens when this thing launches. I have to sign off on an end user license agreement. This is so that if you were to distribute the browser print application, the client application yourself, that your customers would then actually have to agree to the user license agreement as well. And then they're going to be asked about a security certificate. Go ahead and add that certificate. And it says, okay, the certificate has been accepted. Then you can just actually close this out. Nothing else is needed. That's just to verify that the connection is secure and ready to go. And then the only thing you're going to notice once it's running, and it's running now, is at the bottom of the screen here, there's a little icon for browser print. I'm going to right-click on that, and there's a little About screen. Tells you what version we're running on. And there's a Settings screen. Now, in the Settings screen, you've got a couple of different boxes here. There's the Default Devices box, which end users can use to actually set up a specific printer as a default printer. Right now, it's only showing one printer connected here. This is the USB printer that I've got sitting at my desk. And I'm going to go ahead and actually set that up. Underneath that are accepted hosts and blocked hosts. The accepted hosts and blocked hosts are a way for your end users to actually decide whether or not they want to allow specific web pages to access their printers. It's a security measure. It allows them to say, okay, Mr. Joe's website, I want you to be able to access my printers through browser print, but Mr. Bob's website, I don't really want him to access my printers. They can go ahead and once the host is added to this list, they can clear it, or they can just delete specific ones in the list, and then they can also block ones and do the same thing on there. There's also a couple of buttons at the bottom here. By default, browser print will only search for USB connected printers that are actively USB connected, and it's not doing it through a driver. It's a direct USB connection. But there are a couple of buttons here at the bottom, and these are not technically supported features, but they are available. The broadcast search will do a local network search, and will find printers on the local network. And the driver search will actually pull up a list of all of the drivers that are currently on the host computer. So if I go through and hit this, you'll actually see all the drivers I've got. I've got a lot of drivers on my computer here. I'm not going to worry about those. The only issue with the drivers, if you're using that, is that when you're using browser print with a driver, it is not bidirectional. Drivers are not bidirectional by default. They really only handle sending things to printers. They do not handle getting things back from them. So that's something to keep in mind if your end user customers are intending to use drivers, that's a limitation of them. Better off just to use standard USB connectivity where you have full bidirectionality. So that is the browser print application itself. Now I'm going to go in and find the actual application. Now most of this has to do with the client app that's running on the PC, but there is a section in the download here for the developers. And that's this long file name here called Zero Browser Print Docs Web Code Examples. And this has the documentation, the JavaScript library, and some sample code for our developer community. I'm actually going to go in here into the sample and run it. This is what your end users will see when when your application first actually connects, when they first run your application on their PCs with browser print. And generally speaking, they'll actually get a real name for the host name for your website. But because I'm running this on localhost, the host name is actually null. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And if I look here under my settings, now we see accepted host null. That just means that the local host is the accepted host on here. But otherwise, you'll actually see your website as the accepted host under this. And because I already have a default printer hooked up, it shows that on here. It's able to get that. And I just enter name. And it's going to print to the printer right behind me if you didn't hear that. It says OK, it's all nice and printed. I'm going to pop open the media door on it and attempt to print it, and it says the media door is open. So it's able to actually get the status of the printer at the current moment and verify that everything's OK before it goes ahead and tries to print. I can change the actual printer model based on what's in there. I only have one USB connected printer at the moment, but if I go in here, actually that won't work because I changed that. So it will only show the current USB connected. If I had more than one connected, it would show the other ones that are currently connected to it. And I go ahead and print to that printer as well. And there we go. So I will now stop for a moment before we go into the actual code.
All right, Robin. So we had a question around how do you add the accepted hosts? I know there was a window there, but they wanted to know exactly how to do that.
That actually happens automatically as soon as your web page attempts to access the browser print application on the user's PC. Browser print will automatically pop up that accept hosts that I showed you just a moment ago. And let me actually show it one more time real quick. I'm going to delete that and pop open the web page again. And this is what gets popped up automatically as soon as your web application attempts to connect to the browser printer application on the PC. And that happens automatically, and it gives them the choice whether or not they want to allow it. If they don't allow it, it's asked them if they want to add it to the blocked list. I'm also going to say no on this one. In your web application, you can then handle that particular issue. So at this point, I'm going to then rerun it. It's going to ask me again because I didn't add it to the blocked list. This time I'm going to accept it. Does that answer your question?
I think that does. Thank you, Robin. Yeah, he said thank you. So a couple other questions. Are the error messages that we have in there multi-language or just in English?
That is completely up to you on your side. The browser print application will respond back with a couple of different error messages that you can handle however you want. There are a couple of they're very basic as far as explaining what the issues are, and it's pretty clear where they are, and you can handle the multi-language support in your website to whatever you want to show your customers.
Okay. And one other is, because this is an exe file, do we have to put that in Windows Startup, or can it run as a service and start when Windows starts?
It is currently an exe that runs on Windows Startup. By default, it will automatically be added to the Startup folder. So by default, it will actually handle that when you install the application itself. It does not run as a service. That's something that we are interested in hearing whether or not people are looking for it to do in the future.
Okay, and one last question. How does the user know which of the connected USB printers is the one they want? So it's because they're not seeing a Windows printer name, they're seeing a USB address.
There's a couple of things you can do. When Browser Print actually searches for and finds printers, it's able to get a model name of the printer, which you can also display if you want. Right now, we've just got it displaying the serial number of the printer, but you could potentially display in your app the model name, which is generally what the driver will do anyway. If that makes it a little bit easier to find it. The drivers are pretty much only going to give you a model name anyway. So that's one of the things. Plus, you could also query the printer for other information if you wanted as well. Once you have access to all the printers, it's a pretty open communication, and you don't necessarily have to, ask the users past that first initial thing whether or not you want, it to query the printers for other information. Say, if the printer had a specific location ID or other type of information in it, you could query that as well.
Thanks, Robin. There are a couple other questions. I'm going to let you go ahead before I ask those, but I did want to clarify there are still a few questions around supported browsers and operating systems and printers, and I want to clarify here that, first off, as part of the end user license agreement, we are limiting this to Zebra printers. So that's something, because this is a Zebra tool, we are requiring usage of this to be only for Zebra printers. And any other browsers or operating systems, there's no commitment to supporting anything beyond what we have today. We are looking for feedback from all of you on knowing how we should prioritize that development, and based on the feedback we get is going to impact how we move forward. So, if the vast majority of users are satisfied with the feature set we have today, there may not be an expansion to other operating systems and browsers. So that's why part of this, we're looking for that feedback from all of you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, so go ahead, Robin, then we got a few more that we can ask in a bit.
Okay. So I am now popping open the index HTML page from the application, or from the sample app. And the big thing to note here is that we have This is the JavaScript file that we're providing as a library for you to use. And you can find it both in the JavaScript folder here, browserprint 1.0.2, and in the lib folder here. So that's the main library that I talked to you about before for the JavaScript library. For the actual sample, the main part of the code that we've got to look at is called DevDemo. And in the DevDemo, we've got a couple of different things here. Once you actually start the page for this demo, this particular function will run setup web print. And it does a couple of different things just at startup. It will attempt to get the default device from the web print application, and it will send back a printer, which is a device object. And actually, I'll show you some of the API documentation in a moment. Once you have that printer, that becomes your default printer, and you can display it however you like. We also, you can also get a list of all the local printers that are connected to that PC and display that as a list if you like. So we've got that here, the printers. This is an array, so you can actually go through the array and display them however you like. If it wasn't able to actually find any printers, basically you'll find that the printers available isn't actually set here, so there's no printers actually found. You're not going to get an error message from get local devices if there weren't any printers found. You'll just have to say, okay, the array was null, there's nothing in it, and display however you like that there were no printers found. If there was an actual issue, then the main one that you'll find is that browser print wasn't actually installed on the system. Some of the other issues are something else, maybe blocking the communications over that port on localhost. So that's something to look out for. Is it's difficult for the JavaScript to tell whether or not the browser print application is being blocked by another application. So that's something that we'll talk to you a little bit about as well. But that's the message that we're sending for that. And then the other thing is just sending the data. We do have a function here called check printer status, which shows you how to actually request. This is a ZPL request status, but if you're using CPCL or some other printer language, there may be other ways to check the printer status. But for ZPL, this is a basic way to check printer status. Gets you a lot of the different status conditions that may be in the printers. So you'll send this and read back the response. And we've got some parsing here to show you, what different types of responses are, and you can handle that and show it in whatever language is useful for your customers. But once you've got the status, then we're going to go ahead and say, go ahead and print it. So the format start and format end are, we've got that just up at the top here, some ZPL. And then the entered name value, that was the box in the middle there where I put in my name. And then if there's a problem, you'll get a printer error coming back to you, and you can actually put that on the screen if you'd like. So these are all just some extra stuff. So in the end, you're only looking at a very short amount of code to discover printers and print them, get status. There's not a whole lot involved. It's pretty simple and easy to add to your web page. Let me show you some of the documentation that we've got as well. You can actually get to it from here. So this goes through a number of different things, including what some of the requirements are, installation, which I already went through with you guys, and how to set up browser print. And then shows the sample demo, which we went through as well. And then shows you some integration stuff, including the JavaScript that you want to add to your web page. And then there's some actual API documentation showing you what's actually in that JavaScript file. So there's a couple of functions that are in the browser print API itself, get default device, get local devices. There's a couple of other ones like read on interval, which allows you to continuously read or poll the printer for a specific thing. Say you wanted to continuously show status, or say you wanted to continuously show a specific setting in the printer, like the odometer. You could potentially put that on the screen. And this bind field to read data is actually using the read on interval and using and then you can give it a field that you actually want to have it automatically display the information in that field. And then the device class has a couple of functions in it once you've actually found a device that you want to work with. Read, send, then read, and that kind of thing in order to access the device. It's all fairly simple, and we welcome your feedback as to what things that we could add to this to make it more useful to you. So those are the main points. Let me make sure I followed everything that I was going to go through on that. So from the standpoint of this presentation, we've kind of gone through all the major points. And if you want to download and install it, you can get it from zebra.com/linKOS. And if you want to get more information, just go to our developer portal. So do we have any more questions?
We do, Robin. A number of people are asking about support for web apps running on Zebra Android devices.
Okay. From Zebra Android devices, that's something that we are exploring to be able to do with browser print. But until we have support for that, there is Enterprise Browser, which is another developer tool for being able to handle web pages on Zebra devices. There are specific APIs in Enterprise Browser that allow access to the printer over Bluetooth or network. So that's a good bet for right now to be able to use the Zebra Enterprise Android devices to enable printing.
And Enterprise Browser has the same capability to allow the bidirectional communication back and forth with the printer. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, it does. It does. So the APIs in there are based partially on our Android SDK. So it has full bidirectionality in it, and able to do things like discover the printers and have full communication to them and get status.
Okay. Can we avoid having pop-ups and handle things via code for applications like those that would run in a kiosk where there's not a user to do that?
For something like a kiosk, it would be something where once browser print was installed, that pop-up would only come up the one time, the first time it was using your web application. Once that's accepted into the local host, and it's running on that kiosk, the end users, the people who will be using that kiosk will never see it again. So unfortunately, the way that it works right now, the pop-up does come up, and it's not something that is called from the web page. It's called from the browser print client application running on the PC. But it only does come up the one time once it's accepted.
Okay. Hold on one sec. I just got lost here a little bit. What is going on? Does browser print support terminal, server, and print over a thin client browser?
Actually, it should definitely handle a thin client. We've actually had a couple of customers already use it in that way. From a terminal, as long as it's a PC-based terminal, shouldn't be a problem. If it can handle JavaScript, we should be able to handle it that way as well. And what was the third one?
I think you answered that.
Okay.
We also have, this is a follow-up question on the naming of the printers and identifying which is which. In order to know which USB printer out of 2 or more printers, you have to code the names or assign names, correct? or is there an easier way to know the difference in the printers that are USB connected?
Well, it's always the issue with USB connected is that by default there's only a certain amount of information that the printer is giving to the host system. The serial number and the model number are the two big things. If you want something more specific, a name for that printer, it does have to be coded in there. You could potentially, put it into your application that you wanted to add a specific name to that printer, so that future times that your end users access your web page and that printer, that they always know they're getting the same one they want. Or they could potentially just set it up as a default if they have the specific one they wanted to work with. But yeah, that's partially a limitation just of USB in general, is that there's only specific information that's given by default when it first connects.
All right, and is it possible to use browser print via RDP to a Windows server?
Yeah, RDP to a Windows server. I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest. That's a good question, and I honestly do not know the answer right now, but I can look into it and post the answer on our webpage.
Okay. So I think, we have some other questions just about, the supported browsers and operating systems again. So I think what we would like, sounds like there are some people on the call where they do have, their apps on browsers through a web page. There's some people who have other browsers. If you folks, when we do the survey at the end of this, if you could fill that out and let us know, which operating systems, connectivity methods, and browsers you would need to be able to use this tool, we would really appreciate that. You could also do that just in the question field. We're getting the information there too. But that's something that can help us out as we're moving forward to know how best to do this. And then one last question that just came in here, Robin. Is the EXE a local web page server or web server talking to the JavaScript page via AJAX, or is it a browser plugin or something else?
It is not a browser plugin. It is happening very similarly to AJAX, so you kind of hit on how we're handling it. So I would say it's much more close to how AJAX handles communications than it is anything else. So it's not a plugin. It works, it's not tied to any specific browser. I'm going to kind of leave it at that. We do have some IP around this, so I'm not going to go into too many details, but that should get you understanding a little bit about how we're handling it.
Okay, and then we talked a little bit about enterprise browser for the Android devices. What about someone who is looking for a thin client setup with a Windows CE, Windows Mobile type of environment?
Right now, we are not supporting Windows Mobile and CE with this particular product. There are a couple of different options you can use for that, including, again, enterprise browser if it's a Zebra Windows Mobile and CE product. But right now, we're not supporting that. That's something that we could be potentially looking into in the future.
All right, thanks, Robin. And I can follow up with the person asking the question as well.
Okay. All right, it was a short dev talk today. So I hope you guys, I hope everyone got a pretty good idea of how to use it and how to integrate it, and seeing what exactly it is, and seeing whether or not you can use it. Obviously, we're really looking for feedback here. So if you can use it as is, let us know. If you can't, also let us know, so we know what to focus on in the future.
All right, well, thank you everyone very much. Again, there's going to be a few survey questions at the end. We'd love to hear back from you, and also if you can look at that survey that's at developer.zebra.com. We will be capturing the recording of this as well as the slides Robin went through and posting them probably in the next 2 to 3 days, and we're going to do that back on the developer events and in the original post that we have there for the Dev Talk. So thanks again, everyone, for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks at our next session. Thank you.